I am Spencer Linton, teamed up with Jarom Jordan. Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline for the first of two segments, which we are very much looking forward to, is one of the all-time BYU basketball greats, Yoeli Childs, via Zoom. Yoeli, welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. Great to talk with you.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a good time. Thank you.
Yoeli, last night on social media, you posted a very well-thought-out, eloquent message as it relates to Black Lives Matter and your experience at BYU and your experience growing up in a predominantly white community. Jarom and I both were really blown away by that. We want to get into the emotion of that as we start this conversation. And if you could, walk us through what you were feeling as you composed that message that you sent out to essentially the world.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody that really took the time to read that and hear out my story and part of my life. I think that it says a lot just to be willing to listen. So thank you to everybody that's done that and is continuing to do that. But, I didn't just type that up yesterday. I started writing that probably, 2 weeks ago. And I made a lot of changes to it because I was so concerned about, letting off my message in the right way. I didn't want to be offensive or I didn't want to divide. The things going on in our country and the things going on in the history of our country, they bring a lot of emotions to Black people. I felt watching, the killing of George Floyd, I felt so much anger, rage, sadness, pain. And I know a lot of us felt that as well. So, I was saying earlier, it's one of those things that I've tried to learn through my experiences, especially my experience with the suspension at BYU, the importance of being able to, put your initial raw emotions to the side and, devise a plan of how can I express my feelings in the right way, in a way that's going to bring us together and not tear us apart. So I just hope that people hear my story and don't think that I'm trying to do anything that I'm not. I'm really just trying to share my experiences and bring us together. But the response has been unbelievable. Like, I already knew BYU fans and the people in this community were unbelievable people. I already love all of you. But I've been blown away by the response, by the thoughtfulness, by the willingness to learn and understand. It's been so beautiful. Somebody commented the most thoughtful comment I've seen. They said something along the lines of, a part of their comment was, when I was at BYU, I noticed that if I saw a Black person on campus, I would make eye contact with them, and then I would feel bad about making eye contact with them because I didn't want to feel like I was staring at them. So then I would just turn and not look at them. And that is so real and so raw. And I just appreciate such a thoughtful comment like that, such a self-aware comment. And there's been so many comments like that and so many people that, are wanting and willing to learn. And, that's the biggest thing I would say is, just as a state, as a community, we have a lot of ignorance. And I want to be very careful with the way I say that. Ignorance has a very negative connotation. It comes across as dumb, stupidity. And that's not what that is. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we're not around a lot of Black people, so it wouldn't make sense for us to understand what that plight is like. So that's, when I say ignorant, I'm not meaning that in a negative way at all. It's just the reality of not being around different types of people a ton. And, I would say that because of that, it's important that we keep being us. This community and these people and BYU fans, Cougar Nation, this whole state is dramatically full of amazing people that are caring and thoughtful and kind. And I would say now it's just important that we educate ourselves on the topic that we haven't seen much of in our state. And once we educate ourselves on those things, the rest will take off, especially in this amazing state, because the people are already so kind and helpful and willing to set themselves aside to help other people. So, I would just say it's amazing to see how wonderful the people in this state are, and have that confidence in our people.
And well said. And let's explore a ton of angles from within what you just said. I think part of that education, Yoeli, is understanding what Black people go through in different communities. And you outlined that really well, some stories of you and your brother experiences you've had where, frankly, we haven't had those experiences ourselves. So for those who missed your post or haven't read it quite yet, will you explain some of those experiences so that we can be educated on the difference of how you are treated versus, say, how we are treated?
Yeah, I shared a story from when I was a little kid. I was probably 11, and it's similar to that story that the person shared on a comment of the whole eye contact thing. And it was, I was walking through a grocery store parking lot, and there was an older white woman, and as I was walking by her car, she noticed me and kind of like scrambled to lock her door. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm an 11-year-old kid. Like, I'm like, what? Why are you afraid? Like, what am I gonna do? And you know, that's where there's the difference in, you know, just this person looks different than me. It's natural to look at this person versus, you know, the things that we're taught about a group of people. So that's one of the first experiences I remember. You know, I have tons of experiences growing up where, you know, you get followed in stores, you are accused of stealing things, you're kind of just viewed as a criminal, like you're going to do something wrong. And then, you know, there's some more serious experiences. You know, I remember me and my brother being at the local movie theater as, you know, middle school kids, and a group of kids coming up to us, calling us all sorts of names and, you know, racial slurs. And then eventually, you know, pulling a knife out on us, saying like, I'm going to kill you, you know. So we've had experiences like that are just, you know, it seems bizarre, and it seems like, no, those happen in other places. That doesn't happen here in Utah. But, you know, it does, and that's the reality. You know, I haven't had experiences with police like my brothers had, but every experience I've had with police outside of a classroom has been a negative experience, and that's just the reality of my truth. And I'm not saying that police officers are bad people. I had a class in high school. It was Officer Russell taught the class, and it was a law enforcement class, and he is one of the greatest people I've ever met. He was so kind. He was genuine. He was loving. And, you know, that was an experience I had that was so positive, but I haven't had those experiences outside of a classroom. You know, some of the experiences my brothers had are shocking. It's unbelievable. He was pulled over one night on the freeway driving home, and he was ordered from a megaphone. There was three or four cop cars. They said, you know, get out with your hands up. He comes out, they're like, turn around, some explicits, turn around, put your hands on the back of your head. He has no idea what's going on. He's on the side of the freeway in the freezing cold. There's ice on the ground. There's 6 guns drawn on him, and he's just so scared. Like, if I slip, are they going to shoot me? Like, am I going to die if I slip? And it's like I'm getting a little emotional because that's my little brother, you know? And it's just like, he wanted to be seen as a person. And they came up to him, didn't explain anything, started searching his car, and an officer stood probably 5 feet from him with a gun pointed directly at his face. And, you know, we learned from my mom from a young age how to handle these interactions. And he tried to be very calm, and he started talking to the officer, saying, you know, trying to show the officer I'm a human being too. And he was saying things like, you know, how's your night going? It's a cold one tonight. You guys doing all right? What's going on? Blank face. Not a word was replied to him. The gun was held to his face for 40 minutes. So, you know, these are real experiences that people in our community are facing. And, you know, I don't know, maybe if he was white, I don't know if the gun would have been on him for 40 minutes. Those are things that I don't know. That's you know, that's my idea, but that's not the fact. The fact of the matter is that he had a gun pointed at him for 40 minutes, and I don't see a reason for that ever happening. You know, on another occasion, he had an officer press a gun on the back of his head because he was in a neighborhood that the officer didn't recognize him in, and thought that he was there doing something wrong. And he was probably 16 years old. So, you know, there's scary experiences like that happen and that are very real. And I think it's important to acknowledge that those things are happening. And like I said before, the response that people have had has been amazing. Just saying, like, I had no idea these things happen in our state. You know, this is crazy. And just acknowledging it as reality and not trying to make excuses. It's been really amazing to see.
Yoeli Childs with us on BYU Sports Nation, sharing some staggering stories about the past within his own life and his little brother's life. And I think it goes without saying, Yoeli, that, Jarom and I collectively have our jaws open when we listen to things like this. We've talked to Derwin Gray, who is a pastor in South Carolina and a former BYU alumnus, and he has told us you can't just stand back and watch things happen. You have to be anti-racist. You have to be proactive with this. And I think we're all kind of wondering, what can we do as a community to not just, say things about it, but be about it? So how can we be about it and be of greater support to you and all Black people for that matter?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And I don't think there's any exact answer. And before I get into that, I just want to say that, I am not the end all be all of this discussion. My opinions aren't necessarily the fact of what should be done. It's just my opinion. I'm not an expert on these things. I'm just someone that's experienced these things and has tried to educate myself on them. I think we should try our best to live like Christ lived. That's how I try to look at life. I try to say, how would Christ live? How would Christ handle these situations? And you just try your best to emulate that. And what is more Christ-like than, the parable of the lost sheep? What is more Christ-like than caring about the minority? Christ was an advocate for the minority. He was an advocate of the disenfranchised. And I think the most Christ-like thing we can do is say, I'm going to take the time to learn and care about a minority group, even though it's not necessarily my family, it's not necessarily my initial group of friends. I'm going to go look for that lost sheep. I'm going to go for the one. And I think that if we can have that mindset of a Christ-like mentality as we do these things, it's going to open up different levels of patience, different levels of understanding. And then I think that the biggest thing we can do is continue to educate ourselves. That's the first big step, is to understand what's happening and understand why it's happening. We have to understand, why are Black kids more likely to get detention? Why are Black people more likely to get pulled over? Why are they more likely to get sentenced to jail for the same crimes as their white brothers and sisters? Why are they more likely to have a longer sentence? Why are they less likely to be shown more homes when they're looking to buy a home? Why are Black people that graduate from college, twice? Why do they have half the rate of employment? We have to look at why these things are happening and educate ourselves on the historical reasons as to why these things are happening. And then I think as we do that, we can educate our initial group of people. I think it's important to, use social media to share our opinions and share what we learn with the world. But I think where you make real change is in your family. The conversations you have with your parents, your siblings, and your kids especially. The way that you raise the next generation will make a bigger impact than you can ever realize. So I think that's where we make real lasting change, is in our individual families. And if we have thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people doing that, that's where I think the biggest change comes. But, that's my opinion.
One thing that's helped me in my personal education here has been consuming certain either movies or TV shows or documentaries that have educated me on this. In addition to hearing people's experiences, in addition to going to a protest on Saturday and seeing that, what would you recommend for people to perhaps consume from a media perspective that would help educate?
Yeah, I think the Netflix put out a great little piece. It's like a Black Lives Matter piece where they have, I don't know, it was probably 30, 40 different movies you can watch. And I think that's just such an easy way to educate yourself. And me and my wife are excited to get into all of those and educate ourselves. I think nobody has a perfect knowledge of what's going on. And it's important for us to all be humble and be willing to listen and learn and understand that, there might be things in a movie that make you uncomfortable. There might be things that you feel are, that you feel are magnified for dramatic effect, things like that. So I'm not saying a movie's going to be perfect, but it's going to be a great starting place. You know, the Hate U Give was a great movie I watched. Just Mercy was great. I haven't seen 13th yet, but I've heard amazing things about it. So I think just it's an easy way to educate. Another thing we can do is we're so lucky to be in this generation, you know, where, you know, we can hop on Zoom right now and have this conversation. Use the internet, you know, understand that you need to go to websites that are accurate and have accurate information. But in this generation, in this time, you can learn about anything that you want to learn about. So I think just researching on your own, just why are things like this? What are the stats? What are the facts? What's the reality of our country right now? And trying to come to the logical conclusion yourself of why is it like this? So there's a lot. We could go on and on about that.
Yoeli, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your commentary on these matters and how much sincerity and genuine thought you have put into this. We are the benefactors of having you on the program because now we are gaining more awareness, and we're starting to begin to broach that idea of getting rid of the ignorance. So thank you for that. We are the benefactors of having Yoeli for 2 segments today.
Right.
As we now switch our attention to basketball, and specifically, Yoeli, to your basketball future as you prepare for what you hope is an NBA career and just maybe having your name called during the NBA draft, albeit it's in the midst of a pandemic. So how are you handling all of this emotionally, not really knowing the specifics of when and how all the draft is going to happen as you move forward?
First off, it still breaks my heart to hear former BYU standout. I wish I could play there forever. Every time I hear that, I'm like, oh, I wish I could run it back and go 4 more years. But, you know, I'm really excited for this draft process. It's been interesting, to say the least. It's such a unique circumstance right now. And, you know, I'm grateful for, you know, all the different lessons I was able to learn at BYU. You know, the things that my coaches were able to teach me. And one of the big things was to control the controllable, you know, and it's important to focus on what you can control. There's no point in worrying about, you know, the things that are out of your control. Are there going to be workouts? When will they be? All that stuff, you know, it's out of my control. So I'm really focused on, you know, doing the little things I can to get better every day, you know, getting up extra shots, working on my body, trying to do well in these interviews and take them very seriously. So, you know, that's all a product of all the great coaching and all the great people I've had in my life at BYU. But yeah, I'm just excited.
And who knows when the draft's going to be, right? October or something? Is it going to be after the season? It makes sense that it would be, right? They need to know which teams are in the lottery or when the playoffs start maybe or something. How's that going to work? What have you heard?
Yeah, I've heard it's tentatively, I think mid-October. So I'm sure that could change at any time, but it's kind of nice to have a date out and kind of just a mindset, because before that came out, I was ready. I'm ready for workouts next week. And it was a little bit more stressful. So it's just nice to have some kind of a timeline.
How does that work in terms of, obviously you want to go to the NBA. If there was a professional opportunity overseas, their season would start around then anyway. So that timing's interesting, right?
Yeah, no, I'm very locked in on the NBA right now, and you know, the feedback I'm getting, I'm very excited going forward, and I'm very locked in on that right now, and you know, that's gonna be my focus. It's been my dream my whole life, and I feel that my time at BYU has prepared me well for what's coming and the uncertainty and being able to handle all these different changes. So I'm just really excited and looking forward to, you know, that basketball journey.
Yoeli Childs, a forever BYU basketball star on BYU Sports Nation. Does that sound better? Does that sound better?
Thank you.
All right, man. What kind of feedback are you hearing from those that carry weight and have the opinions that matter most in NBA and as far as draft stock goes?
Yeah, I think that teams have been impressed by my ability to get better every year. They think that I'm a high character guy that's going to come in and work hard. And, you know, I think that's the foundation for becoming a great player is coming in, being humble, willing to work, and trying to get better every single day. And these teams are smart and they know that. So, you know, teams are talking about anywhere in the second round right now. So you never know. Draft night's crazy. You never know what's going to happen. But that's kind of the consensus right now, and I'm really excited.
So we reported earlier, USA Today mentioning a projected 40th pick by the Grizzlies with you, which would be sweet, right, to get into the draft there. What are you hearing in terms of your stock, and what kind of conversations have you had with teams in lieu of being able to work out quite yet, or maybe you've worked out for somebody?
Yeah, no, I haven't worked out yet, but you know, teams don't know either, you know, what's going on. So some teams have talked about, they've kind of phrased the way they talk about, like, oh, hopefully we can get you in for workout soon. And other teams are thinking, you know, we're probably going to have to draft off of interviews and film. So I don't think anyone really knows exactly what's going to happen, but the feedback has been very positive. I think that there's a handful of teams that have a very strong interest. So I'm really excited for the opportunity to build a relationship with one of those teams. And, you know, at the end of the day, it just takes one.
Yoeli, the popular thing for media guys to do is to find a comparable that's in the NBA right now, and a common name that has surfaced on a few occasions is Paul Millsap. How do you feel about the comparison of you to a guy like Paul Millsap?
I love it. Paul Millsap's always been my guy. And, you know, when teams ask who I try to model my game after, it's always him. He's number one. So, you know, especially being a Utah guy, I grew up watching him, and I really started watching his film and trying to emulate his game when I got into high school. So I've loved his game. We're very similar builds, similar sizes, and I really just admire the way he was able to come in and carve out a role. And I kind of wanted to follow that blueprint. He came in and he was a hustle guy, high energy, you know, played hard, rebounded the ball at a high level, cut. So I want to be able to do all those things and just kind of add to my game in the ways he did, with continuing to improve his handles, shooting abilities, switch abilities. So he's a really great blueprint for guys that kind of think the game like I do and have a similar build.
Career earnings around $181 million. Does that sound okay?
I don't know.
Maybe more? Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. 180, that's not much. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd take half, you know. I'd take half. Looking back at the season, obviously not playing March Madness was just devastating, right? Obviously a pandemic, ensued and everything came crashing down in that regard. What are some of your top memories from this season? Are you over not being able to play in March Madness, or is that still a lingering thing?
I don't know if I'm over it. I've accepted it for sure. And like I said earlier about controlling what you can control, I think me and the guys are all on that same page of, you know, we wish it could have happened, but we have to have faith that things happen for a reason. You know, you never know why things happen. And you just have to have that faith that there's a plan bigger than yours. But I still have dreams about it. Still have dreams about some of our games, and that's kind of sad, but, you know, life goes on, and I just try to look back at the good times. You know, we had so many good times, starting with, you know, our summer and our trip to Italy, and those are memories I'll cherish forever. To even the times where I was sitting out, being able to cheer on my guys and just be, you know, the biggest cheerleader on the sideline. I look back at that as times I'll always remember. And then, you know, some of our crazy wins, TJ's buzzer beater, his buzzer beaters, plural. The senior night was an unbelievable way to go out. So we had a lot of legendary moments, and, you know, I think that we're always going to try to hang our hat on being that team that kind of brought BYU basketball back. And we're really excited for the future of the program for sure.
And for what it's worth, we here in Studio B look back at that season as one of the all-time greats. Unfortunate that it didn't get to go to the tournament, but, man, you cannot take away what happened on senior night and all those great moments that you just brought up. Let's talk about your buddies that are sticking around to play BYU basketball. This is going to be a very different type of roster with a ton of size, Yoeli. I mean, you were one of a few big guys. Now it feels like BYU has just this a plethora of big men, including now 7'3" Matt Harms. What are your expectations for a different-looking roster under Mark Pope in his second year as head coach?
They're so good. Seriously, they're going to be so good. I'm so excited for not only them, but all the fans. It's going to be such a fun year. You know, I think there's going to be a lot of adjustment, especially on the offensive end of, there might be some spacing issues early on. There might be some flow issues. I think last year we were able to click so well offensively and all the pieces fit really well. But defensively, this team's going to be a juggernaut. Like, they seriously could be the best defensive team in the country. The addition of Brandon is huge. Alex, as we know, can really guard. And then they have so much length defending them in the paint. They have so much switchability, so many guys that can disrupt plays that college guys aren't used to making. So I think they're going to be an elite defensive team. And I'm excited to see what Coach Pope does with the offense. But they're talented, man. Like, I'm going to say it, it's a hot take. Most talented team that there's ever been at BYU.
Whoa!
I know.
Okay, that's hot.
I know. Hot take. But dude, just go up and down the roster, and it's like, if they can put it together, it's going to be special. I'm excited.
Don't let Jonathan Tavernari hear that take. I'm really excited to see who gets your 16 shots, by the way, a game.
I know, man.
There's an opening.
I was talking with Alex the other day, and that was always the kind of the joke, was that he never got a play ran for him, and he was still able to be really productive. So he's gonna get the ball in his hands a lot more, and guys are gonna step up. It always works that way. Guys work hard, and they have such a deep roster right now that there's gonna be a handful of guys that step up and make the jump.
Yoeli, this has been a very enjoyable and beneficial conversation, and I'm probably understating that. In our first segment, we addressed a lot of important issues as it pertains to Black Lives Matter. Of course, we're excited to hear about your basketball future, but we just can't thank you enough. So we really appreciate the time.
No, I appreciate it. And last thing, kind of running back to that first segment that I forgot to mention is, through my experiences, I've been, very standoffish with law enforcement at times, and I try to avoid that. And I think it's really important that, we come together as a community and not just point fingers. So if anybody knows people in law enforcement that would be willing to have a conversation about what's going on, I would love it if you could reach out to me. Just DM me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll try to look through and see if there's any requests like that. So I really appreciate the time being on, and it's always great talking with you guys.
Yoeli, thanks so much.
Thanks, Yoeli.
My friend, class all around. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Yoeli Childs on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, you know why, we show how.